And now, moving on here. Cindy Claypatch, as I mentioned, one of our resident speakers who we're very proud to be able to say comes back frequently. She's an intuitive and holistic practitioner with many years of experience creating programs, counseling, training, consulting, and healing. She was the co-creator of a public housing clinic that was one of 5 recipients of an award from the American Hospital Association. Out of over 200 hospitals, her program was one of 5 that won this award. Her education is extensive besides her master's in human development, focusing on the study of consciousness and complementary healing methods. She has for 25 years studied with shamans, medical intuitives. She studied quantum physics, spiritual practices, Qigong, therapeutic touch, Reiki, 3 hearts balancing, and blue energy. She's founded and owns Perspectives Incorporated. It's a counseling and healing practice designed to bring the prospects of health and healing to light. Her quote is, "It is now when we need to see the power in using our internal resilience to rise above our circumstances and be able to access assistance from the unseen world." Cindy Claypatch. Thank you, Cindy.
Testing? Sound okay? Great. Good morning. Good morning. Nice to see everybody. Well, Earth Day, huh? We're all walking on the earth, so we're all connected. Sometimes more than others, though, huh? Yeah. When I thought about what I wanted to speak about today, or what I wanted to transmit that I received, I kept being pushed a little bit to a metaphor, which actually is connected to the earth before I even knew it was Earth Day. Funny thing, huh? So I want to talk about how do we feel renewed, because during the spring we get to see the renewal all the time, don't we? I mean, you see the green coming up. As I was walking up here, I saw the periwinkle in bloom. I don't know if you caught that along the building, the tulips. So it's that promise of new energy. And so we don't need it to just be coming from nature. We have the promise of our own new energy coming through us at all times. So I started also to think about imagining. Can you turn this on? Is imagining how it is when we're really little and we're just born and everything seems new. You know, a child just they get amazed by pots and pans and you know, the utensil. One of the spatulas is like the hugest thing for a week. You know, it's so interesting, isn't it? Yeah. So when we're so fresh, then we've got those fresh eyes and we're excited and we're in that total place. You see babies and you are so reminded of how they are learning so much because they really seem like a different person every 3 months, you know. And so it's not just the sizes of their clothes that change. It's like their abilities and their consciousness and what they're storing and what they're receiving is amazing. So, you know, I was thinking about if we could, you know, imagine ourselves being reincarnated at the consciousness that you've attained right now, you know, what would you do with it? And so, baby, you're right on schedule. Now, perfect. Doesn't have to leave. Let's see. Hi. Is that like perfect timing? So because I do healing work now, among those other things, and thanks Pete for the longer than needed introduction. I was kind of like, oh my God. is that, because I've come into a place where I now do healing work, that imagine if I could have been doing that young. And we do see kids doing that right now. We see a lot of the kids coming in that we call the new kids. They're the children of now, because they're coming in at a higher level of consciousness. Well, I'd like to propose that we don't have to be young to start over or to feel renewed or refreshed. Because in reality, you use the metaphor of like a river, is the banks of the river may look the same all the time, but there's always different water running through it. The water is never the same for very long. And so how do we may look the same or even older, how do we have something new run through us? Sometimes it has to do with taking a peek at what has been running through us, to be able to make some shifts. So, anybody feeling like you've been on the left lately? Some of that could be your life circumstances, some of it could be your physical health, some of it could be just what's happening energetically too. We've just now got some planets that finally went direct, so we have the energy in sync again a little bit more. So maybe this month you'll be feeling a lot lighter and things happening with some ease. Because that happened, you also might have the systems are open more, so some people are sleeping less. Is anybody noticing that? Like late nights, very early mornings, and yet you might not wake up tired because you have energy coming in that's waking you. So it isn't always that, it's our habits of the mind that might put time to something, and that time limits us. Like, I only got 5 hours. Well, what is that thought going to bring you? A feeling of drained, right? Yeah. So, as we kind of tweak the way that we think and the way that we're noticing things, then we can feel maybe more on the right side there. Is to stop running dialogues through your system that drain you. The commentary of things. Being involved in conversations that don't serve you. I was thinking just the other day of if we looked at conversations that we get involved in that don't serve us, a lot of times it can be listening to somebody else's, what they call a bad day. Or how many times do we need to hear something on the news? Or how about the conversations that you have with yourself? So it's like stop being involved in conversations that don't serve you, even if they are your own. Because a lot of that is just taking energy, huh? And so there's lots of things we can look at in terms of areas where we can drain ourselves. And we know that, like with emotions, how many people feel wiped out after anger? How many people feel like you're dragging yourself around if you've got some self-doubt? And then shame. That's always a useful one, isn't it? Shame and guilt. That'll bring us places. And yet they're just tapes or programs or ideas that have been imprinted into your system, and then your brain thinks it's helping you by offering it. But we get to decide whether we want to be in conversation with it. Decide how much energy we want to place on it. I always say to people, you don't have to like everything, but you get to decide how much energy you put into the dislike of it. And that way stuff can come through. It's like a river, the water's coming through, and yeah, there's some contaminated water, or we throw some more crap in it. We don't have to add to it. We can observe it and see it and go, whoa, look at me go. There's better stuff coming. Because just with that little bit of a slant, just a little bit of a raise, there's the flow again. It's very hard to flow from this way up, isn't it? Yeah. So we have to be willing to kind of back off, quiet down, take our attention off of something, drop the conversation or the chatter, and then all of a sudden we elevate, and then higher quality stuff comes through. And I know you guys already know this, but it's always worth taking a look at it again. So mentally and emotionally, we do a lot of different things. You see how just the collective here probably knows more about how we do that than the collective out there. And I don't mean everybody out there, but I mean there's a lot of, awfulizing. Oh, did you hear about this? Oh, did you hear about that? And people bringing up stuff that is just not of the quality and the purity of the energy that you could be in. And so it's wonderful when we start taking a peek at it and just back off, mentally and emotionally from some things. Most people take a look at feeling drained on the physical level. I've been working too hard, or I haven't had a nap in days, and you feel stuff on the physical level. And as Pete was doing that, you could see just how quickly we can adjust some of our chemistry. That it doesn't take some serotonin getting in there. My mom and I, she's been living with me in the winter since my dad passed suddenly last year, and every now and then we have these just raucous laughs, and she always will say at the end of it, "That was a good laugh." And it really is. It is good, because it clears the other water out and brings in the higher energy. And so it doesn't take much sometimes to shift our physical, backing off of some of the things that you eat or drink that maybe don't help. Bringing more things into your system that might support you, whether it's supplements or whether it's some sunshine or whether it's some good rest. Those are things that help us to feel renewed. And we know it, but our head overrides it so much of the time, doesn't it? Well, I'll do that later. And so what I want to talk most about is the idea of how the spirituality and the energy gets affected. And so if we look at it energetically, we look at the things that drain us energetically. Media, some media, just being in negative spaces. When you walk into a room and it feels like, ugh, pay attention. Our habit is the head to override it and then stay. It's like when you first might have tried smoking, or I remember the first time I had the taste of a beer. I was just like, oh, but then I overrode it. And so now it's like as I get more renewed and I am in my own energy, those things don't feel as good to me anymore. And you can decide how much is okay for you. It really doesn't matter to me. I mean, we don't have to walk this particular line to be spiritual or energetic or anything like that. But I know for me, there's foods that I can't eat either, that just no longer work. And so as your system is changing, think of it as the water's flowing through there differently, so that sometimes then your lifestyle changes too. The violence on TV or the energy vampires. The people who just are always feeling like they're latching on and siphoning. Well, we can't always get away from everybody, but we can certainly maybe think about how we use our energy with that person. The habits of thinking negative and then lacking personal time. Taking other people's energies on, carrying it for other people. Really, you don't serve anybody by carrying their energy for them. Sometimes I'll tell people in counseling that they can hitchhike on my nice feeling for just a little while until I help them remember they have their own, because they do. And so that's a big one. And then as we talked about water and sleep, but forgetting your true essence. You know, if you had X-ray vision and you could look around in here right now,